Hey guys, Crystal Thompson here for Makers Gonna Learn. I'm gonna show you how to make this really cool swinging interactive card using some Maker Gonna Learn's earrings files along with a DIY frame. We're ink blending the whole thing. You need very basic supplies, so stay tuned for the tutorial on how to do it with your Cricut on the design space and then moving on to the actual tutorial. Alright guys, so we're going to continue with the cut files for Makers Gonna Learn. We are going to come down where this is the new stuff that just released, and we are going to use the hard earrings, so be sure you download those and then upload them to your design space. We're going to pop those in. As you can see, those are ready to go, and we have selected the SVG, so it's going to be a cut file. The PNG is also available. Now we're going to move on to creating our card base. So when creating a card base, we're going to think about our size. In this case, it's going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So we're going to pop those numbers in our sizing. Be sure that your little lock is unlocked down there at the bottom of the rectangle, so it gives you that size. So we're going to duplicate this. We're going to make it just a little bit smaller, and that way you can see how to make a frame. And then so when you're happy with the edging of your card base or your rectangle, I'm going to change the color just so you can see it a little bit better. You can go ahead and select both of those and click the split, and it's going to split all of those two rectangles into multiples. We're going to bring in those hearts here shortly, and I'm going to bring them to the front, all the way to the front, and then we can see if those are going to fit in, and that's where they'll fit in. And we're going to dangle those. I'm going to show you how to do that here shortly. So we're going to get those out, and then we're going to select those two rectangles and click the slice, and that way it slices that inner rectangle out of that first one, and you can delete those as we will not be needing them. And then you can see that those hearts are going to fit inside of that card, and then we'll be having those little shifting hearts in the interactive card. So we're going to move those over to our mats. I separated our mats. We really don't need them to. These are both going to be cut out of white cardstock, so you can just select at the top and move over to mat 1 and leave them in the interior of that card to save some cardstock. Alright, so that screen tutorial was totally easy, right? So let me show you what we're going to do now that I've cut it out. So this is my frame ready to go, and for the process of this tutorial I have already added the foam pieces, so you're going to need a little bit of foam. Then we have the backer part of it, so you can really use what's already on this. You could use your pre-made card bases or your card bases that you buy directly from Hobby Lobby or whatever craft store you go to, and that way you can just mount it right on it, finish it, and ship it out. Then let me show you the hard earrings, and I love using different things. I know these are meant for earrings, but we're going to make them little dangly hearts, and they're going to go really pretty on this card, and we're going to be doing ink blending our cuts. For the ink blending, we're going to be using some inks. We're going to use Distress Oxides and Picked Raspberry, Candied Apple, and Worn Lipstick, and you can use any ink that you have in your craft room. I just really like these because they're nice and creamy. And then I'm using some ink blenders. These are specifically for paper crafts, but if you use the makeup ones that you can get from the dollar store or from your makeup aisle, they work just the same. Last but not least, for embellishment, we're using the Nuvo Jewel Drops, and this is just going to help us add some little glitter. We're going to use this as the glue for the glitter that's going to go on the hearts, and for the glitter we're using the Distress Glitter Rock Hard Candy, and it looks like sugar. And then for embellishments, we're using this beautiful array of little hearts. I actually got these at a local craft store, and they're just super pretty, and we're going to embellish our card. And of course you do need some twine, and in this case I'm using a pink, and I got this at Hobby Lobby. So let's get started. Okay, so I have my frame and the die cut. This is like the main part of the card or your card base. So we're going to begin with the Candied Apple. We're going to do the red. So we're going to be simultaneously blending. So I'm going to blend the bottom of my frame. And because it's a really thin frame, I'm just kind of going to dab, trying so not to tear. I did end up using a lighter weight cardstock on this just because I wanted it to be nice and light so it wouldn't be too heavy when you're mailing things out. But any weight of cardstock that you have works. And in this case, I believe this is 60 pounds, and it's just a little bit too light. It's a bit fragile, but for the purposes of this video, it's just going to work. So I have my red. And I know this white on white is kind of difficult to see, but I love how vibrant it makes the colors. Then we're going to move on to our card base or our card panel, depending on what you ended up using. And we're going to blend that. So you're wondering, what's a card panel, what's a card base? So the card base is literally the card. That's the one you fold, and you can make them by pre-cutting them and then scoring and folding. Or you can buy them pre-made, again, from your favorite craft store. And they have variations of craft, cardstock, or white. So then your card panel is actually the part that sits on top. So I like to make card panels that way it's one really good area, and it's easier to show you guys when I'm doing a card panel and I don't have that card base kind of flipping on me. However, it is a little more cardstock, so it just gives you an idea here. So we can pretend this is our card base or your card panel, and again, it's all based on preference. So I have both of my reds to see how they're going to alternate colors. We're going to set this aside and we're going to bring our next color. Our next color is going to be this beautiful picked raspberry, and we're going to use two colors for this card, and then we're going to use that lightest color, the worn lipstick, for the hearts, and then we're going to glitter those babies over. Okay, so we're going to grab this. So one of the biggest things I can tell you when you're doing some ink blending, to prevent any inky fingers, use a scratch of a piece of paper, cardstock, and then just hold down, and that way you're not going to leave your prints on your cardstock until you won't have inky fingers that later on you end up messing up your color combinations because you made them whatever color you had on your fingerprint. So that's another tip that I can give you. And though I'm gonna do a little flurry, we're gonna feather this out because I really do want it to be a little bit lighter at the top. And look what a beautiful little ombre we have going on here. So I'm just gonna feather that out all the way up, and then we're gonna move on to our other piece of cardstock, again the card base or the card panel, and we're going to start right where that feathering of the red starts to look a lot lighter, and then we're going to bring in that picked raspberry and blend those together and then feather down. You can always add more color. You can always come back with more red if you felt that that pink kind of took over, but otherwise we just blend, blend, blend. And so as you can see, we're blending that pink and red, and it makes it really quite pretty. You get that ombre look. And then I'm going to come back on this edge and just continue blending. There's a lot of ink already on my blender brush, so I'm not going to go back. But again, I'm going to feather this bottom part out just so it has a little bit of that white. And it looks really nice and clean. So there you have it. We have both of these ready to go. We're going to come in with our earrings and begin blending those. Okay, now that I have these two, I have a water mister or a little spray bottle, and all I'm going to do, because these are distress oxides, they're going to react with the water and see how there's a little bit of splash. And all that does is give it a little bit of texture, and you don't have to use a distress oxides. If you have a water-based ink and you add a little bit of water, this is what it's going to do. It's going to react just like this. So look at that. Again, it gives you a little bit of dimension. Be sure to let it dry before we proceed to putting this together. And we're going to have plenty of time to let them dry as we move on to adding the glitter to our earring hearts. Alright, our other pieces are drying up. We're going to begin doing the ink blending on the inner part of the earrings. So we have the worn lipstick, and again, we're just going to begin with the first earring. We're going to do this ink blending pretty heavily. That way you get a really nice solid pink. And I am using the same brush that I used for the other pink, so you can see it's not really changing the color. It's just really grabbing it, leaving it on the surface. So you can create an ombre effect as well if you choose. We're going to keep it nice and simple by just adding one color, as we are going to cover these with some glitter, and you're going to lose some of that ombre. So just be sure that it's fully covered. You get a nice dark shade, nice layer, and then we're going to go and add the glitter. So we're almost done here. Okay, and now we can bring in our glitter. So for our glitter, again, I had talked about we're using the distress glitter, and it looks like sugar. Then I'm going to bring in my Jewel Nouveau Drop. So you can use clear glue, or you can use Nouveau, which is kind of like sickles, and you can find them at your local craft store as well. And as you can see, I'm adding just a very rough layer of it. I'm going to use my finger of a spatula depending on if you want to use your fingers. I don't mind, as this is water based, so it's going to wash right off. And I tend to keep a little baby wipe nearby. And this is specifically made for paper, so it being waterproof, this isn't something that I would use on a leather earring or anything like that. So you have this really pretty, glittery, clear liquid going. We're going to add a very soft layer of that rock candy. And then we're going to shake off any of the excess. And it really does look like sugar, which is really kind of cool, especially with Valentine's Day. And then once that is dry, we're going to come in, and you have the little holes because these are earrings on the Makers Gonna Learn website. We're just going to pop this in. Then we're going to add our twine. And you can thread it through a needle, or you can get the end of your twine wet and then run it through. Alright, so let me show you how this ended up. I did add that twine that I was talking about. Just be sure you have a really sharp scissor that can cut that edge nice and clean, and then just wet it with the tip of your tongue and you're able to get it through. And it's very delicate, so you don't want to press it on or pull that too hard, but it really was really easy to put together. So now we're going to begin putting together our card. So as I mentioned earlier, I have foam adhesive on the back of my frame. So just put your placement. Again, we're going to alternate what colors we did. So we're just going to flip over. We're going to add our hearts. And you can tie them up if you like. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of fold them over. I'm going to add, and because we have foam on this already, it's going to hold that twine for us. Then we're going to grab the other one. And just try to keep your ends even. Move this further into frame, and then add the next one. And then don't worry about it poking on the top. We're going to come back and trim those tops, and you will never ever see them. So we're going to grab this very carefully. Okay. And don't worry if they're flipping over, because we're going to just do the placement right now of the corners together, and then we'll fix those and place adhesive on the back in just a minute. So we're going to begin with our bottom corners. And we're going to move this, make sure that we don't end up getting that stuck. Then move this other one. And there you have it. So now you have two of these really cool hearts. We're going to bring in our scissors. And again, you want to use really sharp scissors for this, so you get some clean edges. You have some very fun interactive hearts, and if you like, you can use a little bit of foam on the back to really stabilize those. So we're just going to lift it. And my Nuvo and my glitter is already dry, and I have not sped up this video. This is real time. So I wanted to show you that by using some water-based things for paper, it just makes it that much nicer. So I'm just going to do the one. I feel like I like this kind of paper shaker that we have going on. Okay, now we're going to move on to adding our embellishments. Our embellishments that I had showed you guys earlier were these beautiful little enamel hearts. And they come in a variation of red, white, and pink. And so again, I'm just going to add a couple. I'm not going to do them in the direct path of where the hearts might shake or might swing over. And I am using the Aqua Mono liquid glue. You could use whatever you like. And I'm going to clean off this tip. And then we're just going to add a couple droplets. Alright, so now we're going to add our little hearts, and I am using the Marvy Jewel Picker. You can use the end of an eraser or the tip of a crayon. The wax will really hold on to it. And if you're using the tip of an eraser and it's not sticky enough, just add a little bit of the same glue that you are using to add the hearts or sequins or whatever embellishment it is that you're using. I really like the simplicity of this card. I feel that the swinging part of it makes it a fun interactive card to make. With earring files that we got from Maker's Gonna Learn. So again, guys, that does it for me. Look how fun. Now you are ready to mail this off, add a little treat, a $5 bill inside, and ship it out to the kids. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Crystal Thompson for Maker's Gonna Learn. Have a lovely day.